The design here calls for quite an extensive area of relatively roughly mown grass. It'll extend from the more developed parts of the site through to the back boundaries. Now, CAD software has the ability to hatch areas to indicate the surface covering in those areas, and it can hatch really quickly and put lots and lots and lots of elements into the drawing. I believe it's much better, rather than hatch a whole area, to just hatch zones within a space. I would hope that by putting a zone through here and another one under the trees at the back and so on, that gives the clear idea, and I'll label it grass later, but it gives the clear idea that grass is to be used through that area, and it's to be used in this more formal grassed area as well. If we right click and zoom extents, and you can see, I hope that I've done the same thing here. Here's the hatch area. The simplest way so we're really patterning things very lightly. The simplest way to provide that sort of hatching is to put a polyline. I'll just save the drawing and continue. Draw a polyline, and let's put some in here. Just click, making your polyline, and I tend to just come down like so, and then close, enter and close. So we have a polyline running through there. Now we can hatch it. Draw, hatch, pick the zone to be hatched, right click, up pops the hatch pattern. The file is hatches.pat. This is a design in the US, so we use the hatches.pat file, not the ISO file. Let me just show you that. We have a number of hatch pattern files. ACAD ISO is the ISO view for work in the metric system, whereas ACAD PAT that we've got loaded now and hatches.pat are used in the imperial system. So we can say, okay, that zone has been hatched. What I can then do is select the original polyline and erase it, and there we have it. One final thing to do would be to go Tools and Arrange and send that hatching to the back, so that when we plot, it goes underneath that rather tall tree that's in the front garden there. Now you could apply it, you could do exactly the same in this area through here. If you wanted to indicate that this was to be some brick patterning, you could again draw a polyline in much the same way, just across there and then down, and then come across, close that. You can, let's put another zone of brick paving through here like so, and close. It is possible to hatch two zones at once, so it's draw, hatch. We can pick both zones, right click, up pops the hatch pattern choice, and this time we want to use some sort of brick pattern. I'm just looking for it, angle fire brick or factory material. Not sure that's what I'm after, just want a standard brick stretcher bond will do, and play around a little with the scale setting. I'll just set that at say 2 for the moment. Note that the density comes down as you increase the scale, and we'll go OK. Clearly that scale is a little broad, and so I can come over here into the properties box and I'll drop back to 0.5 and unselect all. So now we have our hatch pattern in place, and again I'm going to erase that zone through there. So for mine, clearly that's going to be a brick paved area now. It's indicated as being brick paving, but it doesn't overwhelm. We could have hatched that entire area, but the hatching, there's a very real danger that the hatching will swamp the design or the presentation of the design. So if we go here into layout space, we're building more complexity and a more attractive look to the design. So if we come back here, notice that I've included a scale bar. The average US vehicle is about 6 feet in diameter. So if we use our distance command and measure from there, we've got a shade over 6 feet for the width of that car. We've got an internal scale bar, a north indicator, which will show in the layout space when we zoom extents there. Not only that, there is a scale. If we just zoom out a little and I select the floating viewport, we've set the scale of 1 to 120. Here's the view scale factor over here in the properties box. So this drawing, which comes courtesy of Richard Mitchell, a US-based landscape architect, he wants a scale of 1 inch to 10 feet or 1 to 120, which we've given him, but we've also got an internal scale bar in there. So when we come to print this drawing, whether we print straight to paper or do a save to PDF, so file, save to PDF, and I'll just put a box around the area of interest, and I'll overwrite the PDF file on my desktop, and I'll maximize it and shrink the drawing a little. You can see, I think that, let me pan up, that the scale bar, north indicator and scale are all nicely presented there. We used a polyline as an aid to hatching, but you don't always have to apply hatching. If we zoom in on the path area which leads through here and then around the house and back into the more formal grassed area there, you can see that the path is rather faint, but if we pick it or select it, you see it's a single polyline, and all we've done is apply a fill to it. So I've come over here into the properties box and said yes, fill. Let me unselect all. Note though that the definition of the path is not as crisp as I would like. One way to change that, and you can do it for symbols as well, is to say yes, the path has a border, and the border being the polyline having a border applied to it. The same applies to things such as, here's a zone for some perennials. If I select that zone there and say yes, it's filled, has it got a border? Yes, it does. What colour are we going to use for the border? Well, we'll pick colour 66, unselect all. Can you now see that that zone is much more clearly defined? And the same will apply to a symbol. Let's pick this symbol, right click and edit the block, pick so that symbol's really been made of one single polyline, which is an efficient way to draft, but we'll say yes, it's got a border, and then I'll close the border. Can you see now that that symbol for Chamaecyparis is much more clearly defined than previously? We might be able to do something similar with this one and edit that block, pick it and say yes, we have a border, and we'll make that border colour 66 to keep it in sync with the other one. Let's close the block editor, and now we've got a crisper definition of that symbol for, what are they? There are 4 Weigelias and a particular strain of Weigelia